Deepak, some say that consciousness is the product of our capacity to have language. That if we didn't have language, we wouldn't be conscious. That consciousness is derivative, in fact, of the concept of being able to use language, and this, as this developed, however language developed, neurobiologically, that consciousness is the emergent product of that.
No, I don't agree. I think consciousness creates through language. And as I listen to you, I hear you basically referring to human language. Okay, but language is the last expression of thought. So when you understand consciousness, first there is thought, which is totally unmanifest. You don't even know that you have the thought. You know, you're going to call your wife at 6 o'clock, but it hasn't occurred to you yet. So it's unmanifest. Then there is the flicker of intention that actually you're not fully aware of, but your brain responds to it, you know. And then there is thought, and then finally there's language. So the big mystery, of course, is where does thought come from? Okay, no one's actually said that's the essential problem of consciousness, right? It's actually the hard problem, because we don't know where thought comes from. We do not know what thought is. And yes, consciousness creates through language, but nature has its own language. You know, nature has language. The birds and bees have their own language. It just is not speaking in English with an Indian accent. Okay? Language is the mechanics of creation. First there was the Word, and the Word was with God, etc., etc. That's pretty good.
You tell a very nice story, but some would say that the only way you can tell that story is because you have language to begin with. So you're creating a mythology based on tradition or based upon your hopes or what you'd like to be true, but in fact it is simply the product that your brain can create language, however it does that, different ways, and that you are using that language to create the consciousness, and then you make up all sorts of stories about the consciousness.
It's the best I can do. If I really, really wanted to tell you the truth, I'd just be silent. There's nothing. We are human beings before we are human thinkings, and we are human thinkings only after we are human beings before we are human feelings. We are human feelings before we are human thinkings. And we are human thinkings before we are human doings. You know, so there is a sequential unfoldment through which consciousness creates reality. Being, feeling, thinking, and doing. Tell me anything that's outside of that. Tell me anything that's outside of that.
But all of those words that you used are language.
Yeah. The human species is able to express that through either noise or through squiggles. We make noises and we are able to express consciousness. Okay, or you make squiggles, and they make different squiggles in China, but they still express the same thoughts.
And what you say is that those squiggles or noises express consciousness. And so
you need consciousness to make those noises.
Well, that's a separate point. That's 2 points. But we start with the squiggles and the noises making consciousness. You are then assuming that the consciousness is making the squiggles and noises, but we don't know that.
Where's the thought before you have it?
How
does a neural network produce a thought?
I think that's a hard question.
What is a thought? You know, we don't
And some would say, I'm not sure I agree with this, but some would say that you can't have a thought unless you have language. So you're mystified by a thought. Sure, you're mystified because you're not able to express it in language.
A bird singing a love song for mating has the intention to mate. Now, it may not be aware of it, but that's an expression of nature. Okay, so nature is constantly, ant colonies are communicating with each other, birds are communicating with each other, you know, those trees out there, you call them trees. See, that's how language has created, in a sense, a false identity. You say, tree, well, that's your lungs. If it didn't breathe, you wouldn't breathe. If you didn't breathe, that wouldn't breathe. You say, atmosphere, it's your breath. You say, the earth, it's recycling as your body. It's star stuff recycling as your body. You say, galaxies, it's me, because I'm that star stuff that is also having this conversation. So, language does create boundaries, and therefore it actually moves us away from the truth. And we are the best at it. Human beings are the best at getting away from the truth. At least nature, in the perfect ecosystem of today, human beings disappeared, this planet would flourish. If insects disappeared today, this planet would be dead in less than 5 years. So who's more important? The insects or you? Our egocentric way of looking at the world.